Arrival on Earth. The spaceship glided through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek, silver surface gleaming in the sunlight. Inside the cockpit, 3 alien students, Zorik, Lyra, and Torin, watched in awe as the blue and green planet grew larger on their screens. Their assignment was simple: observe Earth's environment and its inhabitants, then report their findings back to the Academy on their home planet, Silaris. "This planet is beautiful," Lyra said, her wide, reflective eyes scanning the oceans and forests below. "Beautiful, but primitive," Zorik replied, his voice laced with curiosity. "The technology here is far behind ours. This mission will be easy." Torin, the quietest of the 3, frowned as he studied the readings on his monitor. "Don't underestimate this planet. Its biodiversity is unusual. We've never seen such an unpredictable environment before." The ship jolted suddenly, throwing them off balance. Warning lights flashed, and a loud alarm blared through the cockpit. "What's happening?" Lyra shouted, gripping the edge of her seat. Zorik scanned the controls. "The ship's systems are malfunctioning. We're being pulled by some kind of magnetic force. It's coming from the surface." Despite their advanced technology, they couldn't fight the pull. The spaceship spiraled downward, its engines roaring in protest. They braced themselves as the craft crash-landed in a dense forest, leaves and branches flying in every direction. When the dust settled, the students cautiously stepped out of the ship. The air was thick with the scent of earth and vegetation. Towering trees surrounded them, their leaves creating a green canopy overhead. Strange sounds echoed in the distance: growls, chirps, and the rustling of unseen creatures. "This place is alive," Lyra whispered, her antenna-like sensors twitching. Torin knelt to examine the soil. "There's something unusual about this planet's energy. It's almost alive." Zorik rolled his eyes. "You're overthinking it. Let's focus on repairing the ship and completing our mission." But as they began their work, strange things started to happen. The tools they used seemed to behave erratically. One moment, their scanners showed normal readings. The next, they picked up inexplicable spikes of energy. A cold breeze swept through the forest, even though there was no sign of wind. "Did you feel that?" Lyra asked, looking around nervously. Torin nodded. "It's as if the planet is watching us." Their conversation was interrupted by a low growl. The 3 students turned to see a pair of glowing eyes staring at them from the shadows. A massive creature stepped into view, a predator unlike anything they'd ever seen. It had thick, furred legs, sharp claws, and teeth that glistened in the dim light. "Stay calm," Zorik said, reaching for a defensive device on his belt. But the creature didn't wait. It lunged toward them, its roar echoing through the forest. Zorik activated his device, creating a shimmering barrier that stopped the beast mid-attack. It snarled, slamming against the barrier, but the students were safe. For now. "This planet isn't primitive," Torin said, his voice trembling. "It's dangerous." They retreated to the ship, their earlier confidence replaced by a growing sense of unease. As they worked to analyze the strange magnetic force that had pulled them down, they discovered something shocking. Deep beneath the planet's surface, there was a faint but powerful energy signature. An ancient beacon, pulsing like a heartbeat. "What is it?" Lyra asked, staring at the screen in disbelief. "It's old," Torin replied, "and it's not natural. Someone, or something, put it there." The students exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected Earth to be a simple research mission, but it was quickly becoming something far more complicated. Outside the ship, the sounds of the forest grew louder, as if the entire planet was waking up. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, and the glowing energy signature on their screen grew stronger. "We need to find out what that beacon is," Zorik said, his voice firm. "But we also need to be careful. This planet isn't what it seems." As the sun set, casting the forest in shadows, the students realized they were no longer explorers on a simple mission. They were trespassers in a world full of secrets, secrets that might not want to be uncovered. First contact with humanity. The morning sunlight pierced through the forest canopy as the alien students prepared to leave their crash site. Their ship was partially functional, but its stealth systems were offline, making it impossible to avoid detection. Zorik, Lyra, and Torin disguised themselves using holocloaks, which projected human-like appearances around them. "This should make us look like ordinary humans," Zorik said, activating his cloak. His alien features shimmered and were replaced by the image of a tall man with dark hair and sharp features. Lyra inspected her reflection in the ship's mirrored surface. "I feel exposed," she murmured, studying her new form. "Humans are so fragile. They don't even have exoskeletons." Torin adjusted his cloak, making himself appear as a lean man with glasses. "Focus. We need to gather information. The energy signature from the beacon leads to the nearby settlement. We can't afford to make mistakes." The trio set off, following the faint hum of activity from a small town visible on the horizon. As they approached, they were overwhelmed by the sheer chaos. Cars honked loudly, people shouted into small devices, and flashing signs advertised things they couldn't comprehend. "This is madness," Lyra said, clutching her head. "How do they live like this?" "They thrive on chaos," Torin replied, scanning the area with his concealed device. "It's fascinating. Primitive, yet efficient in its own way." Their quiet observation was interrupted by a commotion nearby. A crowd had gathered around two humans arguing heatedly in the middle of the street. One was a wiry man clutching a small bag, his eyes darting nervously. The other, a broad-shouldered figure, had a badge pinned to his chest, a human enforcer of some kind. "Stop right there," the enforcer barked, reaching for the wiry man, who bolted into the crowd. Without thinking, Lyra stepped forward, her instincts overriding her caution. She extended her hand, emitting a subtle pulse of energy that caused the fleeing man to stumble and fall. The crowd gasped as the enforcer pounced, securing his quarry. "What just happened?" Zorik whispered, pulling Lyra back into the shadows. I didn't mean to interfere," she stammered, her voice shaky. It was instinct. But their moment of unease didn't go unnoticed. A young child in the crowd pointed at them, his wide eyes fixed on Lyra. "They're glowing," the child said loudly, drawing the attention of those nearby. The students froze. For a brief moment, their holocloaks had flickered, revealing glimpses of their true forms. "Let's move," Torin hissed, pushing them away from the crowd. They slipped into an alleyway, their cloaks stabilizing. But the incident had already drawn the attention of others. A man in a dark suit stood at the edge of the crowd, speaking into a device. His gaze lingered on the direction the students had fled. "We've been compromised," Zorik said as they regrouped in a quiet corner. "We need to lay low," Lyra added, her voice trembling. "Humans are already suspicious of us." Torin's scanner beeped softly, interrupting their conversation. "The beacon's energy signature is stronger here. It's close." They followed the signal to an abandoned industrial building on the edge of town. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the faint hum of machinery vibrated beneath their feet. As they ventured deeper, they found a hidden passage leading underground. "This doesn't look human," Zorik said, examining the intricate symbols etched into the walls. Torin's voice was tight. "That's because it isn't." At the end of the passage, they discovered a chamber housing an ancient console covered in alien script. The beacon's energy pulsed faintly from the machinery, filling the air with an almost hypnotic rhythm. "This is it," Lyra whispered, her hands trembling as she reached for the console. "This is the source." Before they could investigate further, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. The man in the dark suit from the town had followed them, accompanied by armed agents. "Whatever you are," the man said, raising a device that looked like a weapon, "you're coming with us." The students exchanged panicked glances. They had come to observe, but now they were the observed. In a single moment, their mission had shifted from exploration to survival. The discovery of Earth's past. Torin's hands trembled as he connected the alien console to his portable scanner. The chamber's walls hummed faintly, pulsating with energy as though alive. Zorik and Lyra stood guard at the entrance, their cloaks shimmering faintly under the dim light. The distant echoes of approaching footsteps reminded them that time was not on their side. "This technology is ancient," Torin muttered, his voice barely audible over the rhythmic pulses of the beacon. "It predates anything in our Academy's records." "What does it say?" Lyra asked, her wide, reflective eyes darting nervously between the chamber and the corridor outside. "It's not just a beacon," Torin said, his voice tinged with awe. "It's a repository of knowledge, records of a war fought here eons ago." Zorik's posture stiffened. "A war? Earth doesn't have the technological capability to be involved in a war like that. Are you saying it was a battleground?" Torin nodded slowly, his eyes glued to the alien script unfolding on his scanner. Not just any battleground. Earth was the front line of a galactic conflict. The survivors of that war encoded warnings into this beacon to keep others from repeating their mistakes. Before Torin could elaborate, the scanner emitted a sharp beep. The beacon's energy surged, and the chamber was suddenly filled with projections, holographic images of massive starships descending onto a young Earth. The skies burned red as alien forces clashed, unleashing weapons so powerful that they altered the planet's ecosystems forever. Lyra gasped, stepping back as the holograms shifted to show monstrous creatures, genetic experiments gone wrong, ravaging the land. Those are the guardians we encountered," she said, her voice trembling. "They're not natural. They were created." The projection shifted again, revealing a group of alien scientists around the beacon. Their faces were solemn, their movements deliberate as they encoded the final message. "This world is cursed," the projection stated in an eerie, echoing voice. "Its inhabitants will evolve to adapt to its chaos, becoming the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Let no one disturb this place. Leave it buried, forgotten, and untouched." The projection faded, leaving the chamber in silence. "They were talking about humans," Lyra whispered, her mind racing. "They're the product of this chaos. That's why this planet is so unpredictable." Zorik clenched his fists. "If humans are so dangerous, why haven't they taken to the stars yet? They don't even know this beacon exists." "That's the point," Torin said grimly. "The beacon is suppressing them. It's designed to keep their development in check, sending warnings to the galaxy to stay away. Earth is quarantined." Before they could process the revelation, the chamber shuddered violently. Dust and debris rained down as a low growl echoed through the walls. The Guardians, awakened by the surge of energy, were closing in. "They know we've activated the beacon," Lyra cried, her holo-cloak flickering as she reached for her defensive device. Zorik pulled her toward the exit. "We need to leave. Now." But as they turned to flee, the sound of human voices joined the growls. The agents from the surface were descending into the chamber, their weapons drawn and their faces tense. "This is no longer a research mission," Torin said as they ran. "This is a fight for survival." The ancient warning from the beacon echoed in their minds. Let no one disturb this place. But it was already too late. The students had unearthed secrets that were never meant to be revealed, and now they were caught between two deadly forces, humanity and the planet's ancient defenders, chased by the Guardians. The forest was eerily silent as the students ran, their breathing ragged and their holo-cloaks flickering with strain. Behind them, the ground trembled rhythmically, as if the planet itself had awakened in anger. "We're being hunted," Lyra whispered, her voice shaking. She glanced back, but the dense trees hid whatever monstrous force was closing in on them. "It's not just the Guardians," Torin said, his scanner emitting rapid beeps. "There's something else tracking us. Something faster." Zorik stopped abruptly, raising a hand to silence them. His enhanced hearing picked up faint mechanical whirring. He motioned for them to hide, and they ducked into a hollow beneath a fallen tree. Moments later, a biomechanical creature stalked into view. It was unlike anything they'd seen before. A seamless fusion of metal and organic tissue, with glowing red eyes that scanned the area with predatory precision. Its limbs moved with unnatural grace, and its claws dug deep into the earth as it sniffed the air. "That's a guardian," Torin whispered, his voice barely audible. "It's adapting to us. The more we evade it, the smarter it becomes." Before Zorik could respond, the creature's head snapped in their direction. Its eyes locked onto their hiding spot, and with a deafening roar, it lunged. "Run," Zorik shouted, activating his defensive device to create a temporary energy barrier. The Guardian crashed into it, sending a shockwave that rattled the forest, but the barrier wouldn't hold for long. The students sprinted deeper into the woods, weaving between trees and leaping over roots. The sounds of pursuit grew louder as more Guardians joined the hunt, their inhuman howls piercing the night. "What do they want from us?" Lyra yelled, her legs burning from exertion. "We activated the beacon," Torin replied, his voice grim. "That was their trigger. They're programmed to eliminate any threat to it." As they ran, they stumbled upon a clearing where an abandoned human facility stood, a rusted structure covered in vines and moss. The air around it buzzed faintly, as though some residual energy lingered within. "This wasn't on any human map," Zorik said, his eyes narrowing. "It's shielding technology," Torin explained. "Humans don't even know it's here. It must be connected to the beacon." The students hesitated for a moment, but the sound of the Guardians closing in left them no choice. They sprinted into the facility, sealing the heavy steel doors behind them. Inside, the air was stale and thick with the smell of decay. Dim lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The students activated their scanners, searching for anything that could help them survive. "This place is a relic," Lyra said, running her hand over a console covered in dust. "It's older than the beacon." Torin's scanner beeped urgently. "Wait, this isn't just a facility. It's a control center. It was used to monitor the Guardians." Zorik's eyes widened. "You're saying we can turn them off?" Torin shook his head. "Not exactly. The Guardians are semi-autonomous, but we might be able to override their behavior, make them stop seeing us as intruders." Before they could act, the facility trembled violently. The Guardians had found them, their claws scraping against the steel doors, denting them with every strike. "We don't have much time," Zorik said, his voice tight with urgency. Lyra worked quickly, brushing away years of dust from the console. Her fingers danced across the alien interface, deciphering its commands. "I think I found it. A failsafe. It's risky, but it might give us a chance." "What kind of risk?" Zorik asked. "The failsafe temporarily shuts down the Guardians, but it triggers a localized energy surge," Lyra explained. "It could alert every human and alien within 100 miles. The steel doors groaned under the force of the Guardians' relentless assault. "Do it," Torin said, his voice firm. "We'll deal with the consequences later." Lyra took a deep breath and activated the failsafe. The console lit up, and a low hum filled the facility. Outside, the sound of the Guardians abruptly stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. For a moment, they thought they were safe. But then, the hum grew louder, shaking the ground beneath their feet. "What's happening?" Zorik demanded. Lyra stared at the console in horror. The failsafe. It didn't just shut down the Guardians. It reactivated something else. The students exchanged terrified glances as a deep mechanical voice echoed through the facility. "Intruders detected. System override initiated." The walls began to shift, revealing hidden compartments filled with dormant machines. One by one, the machines powered on, their eyes glowing with the same malevolent red as the Guardians. "We woke up the wrong thing," Torin said, his voice barely a whisper. The students had escaped the Guardians, but now they faced an even greater threat, an ancient defense system that had been dormant for centuries, waiting for someone to make the mistake they just had. Earth's darkest secret. The ground beneath the students trembled as they raced through the labyrinthine corridors of the facility. The air hummed with an unnatural energy, growing heavier with each step. Behind them, the ancient machines they had accidentally awakened were stirring to life, their red eyes flickering like embers in the dark. "We can't keep running forever," Lyra panted, clutching her scanner tightly. "We won't need to," Torin replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. "The energy source is close. It has to be the heart of this entire system." Zorik skidded to a halt at a junction, glancing at the readings on his device. "This way," he said, pointing to a corridor that sloped downward. The trio descended into the depths of the facility, the temperature dropping with each step. The walls began to shift, morphing from rusted metal to a smooth black material that absorbed all light. Strange symbols glowed faintly, pulsing in time with the energy they were tracking. "This isn't human technology," Lyra whispered, running her fingers over the symbols. "No," Torin said grimly. "This is far older than anything in our galaxy's records." The corridor opened into a massive chamber, its walls lined with towering cylindrical pods filled with a viscous, glowing liquid. Inside each pod was a humanoid figure, suspended in a state of deep stasis. "What are they?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling. "They're human," Zorik said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "But different. Enhanced." Torin's scanner beeped frantically as it analyzed the energy signatures in the room. "These aren't just any humans. They're prototypes, genetic experiments created during the war we uncovered. This is where the Guardians came from. These humans were their templates." The realization hit them like a physical blow. Earth wasn't just a battlefield. It was a testing ground, a living laboratory where the most dangerous species in the galaxy had been weaponized. At the center of the chamber, a massive structure pulsed with the same energy as the beacon they had activated. It was a monolithic device, covered in the same ancient symbols, and its core emitted a faint otherworldly glow. "This is it," Torin said, approaching the structure cautiously. "The central beacon. It's controlling everything. The Guardians, the failsafes, even the suppression field keeping humans from advancing too quickly." Lyra stared at the beacon, her expression conflicted. "If we destroy it, we could free humanity from its restraints. They'd finally be able to evolve and reach their full potential. But at what cost?" Zorik countered. "This beacon has been sending warnings to the galaxy for millennia. It's kept Earth hidden from civilizations that would see humans as a threat. If we deactivate it, we're exposing them to a galaxy that might destroy them, or worse." Before they could decide, the chamber shook violently. The machines they had awakened were closing in, their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors. "We're out of time," Torin said, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to make a choice." As the machines breached the entrance, the beacon emitted a deep, resonating tone. A holographic projection flickered to life above it, showing an alien figure with elongated features and piercing, luminescent eyes. "To those who find this," the figure intoned, its voice carrying an ancient weight, "know that Earth is the cradle of chaos. Its people are both the galaxy's greatest hope and its ultimate threat. Protect them or destroy them, but choose wisely, for the fate of all life depends on your decision." The projection faded, leaving the students in stunned silence. Lyra's eyes filled with determination. "We can't abandon them. Humanity deserves a chance to prove itself." Zorik hesitated. "And what if they prove the galaxy's fears right? What if they become something worse?" The machines were closing in fast, their red eyes glowing brighter with every step. The students stood at the precipice of a decision that would change the course of history, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The beacon pulsed again, as if waiting for their answer. The choice. The stereo light of the beacon's chamber flickered ominously as the alien students stood frozen, their hearts racing. Outside, the relentless machines pounded against the massive doors, their metallic growls reverberating through the ancient facility. Zorak's voice cut through the tension. "We can't stay here. The machines will break through any moment." Lyra ignored him, her focus locked on the beacon's holographic interface. Her fingers hovered over the controls, trembling with the weight of the decision they faced. "This isn't just about survival anymore," she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "This is about humanity's future, and maybe the galaxy's." Torin's sharp tone interrupted her. "The galaxy is afraid of humans for a reason. They've adapted to thrive in chaos, evolved to overcome impossible odds. What if they become the threat this beacon warns about?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes fierce. "And what if they don't? What if we're standing in the way of the galaxy's greatest potential? Isn't it worth the risk to let them try?" The pounding at the doors grew louder, and the ancient walls groaned under the strain. Zorak stepped between them, his face a mask of determination. "We don't have time for debates. If we're making a choice, we make it now." The beacon pulsed again, casting eerie shadows across the room. It seemed to hum with awareness, as if it could sense their hesitation. The holographic projection reappeared, displaying a faint countdown. "What's that?" Zorak asked, his voice tense. Lyra's eyes widened as she deciphered the symbols. "A failsafe. If we don't act, the system will assume we're a threat and activate planetary defenses. It'll wipe out everything. Humans, Guardians, us." Torin's jaw tightened. "Then we have no choice. We need to disable the beacon. Shut everything down." Lyra hesitated, her mind racing. But what if shutting it down alerts the galaxy? If Earth is exposed before humanity is ready, they could be wiped out by more advanced civilizations. Zorak placed a hand on her shoulder. "We can't protect them from everything. They'll have to stand on their own someday. Maybe that day is now." Lyra took a deep breath and nodded. She reached for the controls, her hand steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. But before she could act, a deafening explosion rocked the chamber. The doors had been breached. A swarm of biomechanical guardians poured in, their red eyes scanning the room with ruthless precision. Behind them, the shadowy agents from the human government entered, their weapons drawn and their faces grim. "Don't move," the lead agent barked, his gun trained on the students. The guardians ignored the humans, their focus solely on the beacon. They advanced with terrifying speed, their claws sparking against the floor as they surrounded the structure. "What are they doing?" Zorak whispered, stepping back. "They're protecting it," Torin realized. "We're not their target anymore. The beacon is their priority." Chaos erupted as the humans opened fire on the Guardians, their bullets ricocheting off the machine's armored exteriors. The students ducked for cover, caught between two forces they had no control over. "We need to act now," Lyra shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Torin nodded, his fingers flying across his scanner. "I can overload the beacon's energy core. It'll create a temporary EMP, disabling the Guardians and the beacon, but it'll also destroy this entire facility." "And us?" Zorak asked grimly. Torin hesitated. "If we're fast, we might make it out, but it's not guaranteed." The Guardians began to shift their focus to the humans, tearing through their ranks with brutal efficiency. The air was thick with the sounds of gunfire, screeching metal, and shouted orders. Lyra's voice was firm. "Do it. We can't let this place stay active. If humanity has a future, they need to forge it on their own, without this beacon's interference." Torin activated the sequence, and the beacon's hum grew into a deafening roar. The light in the chamber intensified, and the countdown on the hologram sped up. "Go," Torin yelled, grabbing Lyra and Zorak as they sprinted toward the exit. The facility began to collapse around them, the walls shaking violently as explosions rippled through the structure. Behind them, the beacon emitted a blinding flash, and the Guardians froze mid-attack, their red eyes dimming to black. The students barely made it out as the facility imploded, the ground collapsing into a smoking crater. They stood in silence, watching as the beacon's light disappeared, leaving the forest eerily quiet. Lyra broke the silence, her voice heavy with emotion. "It's done. The beacon's gone. But at what cost?" Zorik asked, his gaze fixed on the smoldering ruins. Torin's expression was unreadable as he scanned the horizon. "The galaxy will notice the beacon's absence. They'll come looking." Lyra's eyes were resolute. "Then humanity will have to be ready." As the students walked away, the distant hum of an approaching ship echoed through the sky. Something, or someone, had already noticed the change. The final stand. The sky over Earth turned an unnatural shade of crimson as the first alien ships appeared in orbit. Massive, sleek vessels loomed above, their silhouettes blotting out the stars. From the smoldering crater that was once the beacon's facility, faint pulses of energy spiraled upward, acting as a cosmic flare that had summoned the galaxy's attention. Zorik, Lyra, and Torin stood at the edge of the ruins, their expressions grim as they watched the ships descend. The quiet forest around them now felt like the calm before a storm. "They're here," Torin murmured, his eyes fixed on the sky. Lyra tightened her grip on her scanning device. "And they're not here to talk. That signal we disrupted was a warning, and we just told the galaxy that Earth is open for attack." Zorik stepped forward, his face a mix of determination and guilt. "We came here to observe, but we've put this planet in danger. Now, we need to fix it." Before Lyra could respond, a deafening rumble shook the ground. The lead ship descended through the atmosphere, its engines sending waves of heat and wind across the landscape. As it landed, a door on its underside opened, revealing a group of alien soldiers clad in advanced armor, their weapons glowing ominously. "Contact," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. The soldiers moved with military precision, scanning the area as they advanced. Behind them, another group emerged, diplomatic figures, their ornate robes fluttering in the wind. They carried devices that emitted strange, fluctuating signals. "They're not just here for conquest," Torin observed. "They're trying to assess the threat level of the humans." Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet quaked violently. The ruins of the beacon facility shifted, and a deep rumbling echoed from within. The students exchanged alarmed glances. "The Guardians," Zorik said, his voice tight with urgency. "The beacon's destruction must have triggered their final failsafe." From the crater, biomechanical guardians began to emerge. Hundreds of them, their glowing red eyes blazing like fire. Unlike before, these guardians were larger, faster, and clearly designed for one purpose: total annihilation. The alien soldiers hesitated, their weapons trained on the approaching horde. The first guardian lunged with terrifying speed, tearing through their front line before they could react. Chaos erupted as the aliens opened fire, their advanced weaponry barely slowing the relentless machines. "We need to help them," Lyra shouted over the din. "Help them," Zorik snapped. "They came to wipe out humanity." "They didn't come prepared for this," Torin interjected. "And if the Guardians destroy them, who's next? Humans won't survive this on their own." Lyra turned to the others, her expression resolute. "If we don't act now, this planet will become a graveyard. We started this. We have to finish it." Without waiting for a response, she activated her device, sending out a pulse that disrupted the Guardians' movements. They staggered briefly, giving the alien soldiers a chance to regroup. "Let's even the odds," Torin said, following Lyra's lead. The three students launched a coordinated attack, using their advanced technology to create barriers, disarm Guardians, and guide the alien forces into more strategic positions. Together, they turned the tide of the battle. But the cost was high. As the last of the Guardians fell, the battlefield was littered with wreckage and smoke. The alien soldiers, battered but alive, turned their weapons on the students. "Stand down," the lead diplomat commanded, stepping forward with a wary expression. "Who are you, And why are you interfering? Zorik stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. We're not your enemy. We came here to study this planet, and we made a mistake. The beacon's destruction drew you here, but now you see what Earth truly is. A place of unimaginable danger. The diplomat's eyes narrowed. And the humans, are they the threat we feared? They're unpredictable, Lyra admitted, stepping beside Zorik. But they're also resilient, resourceful, and capable of incredible things. This planet is chaotic because of what it endured during your ancient wars. It's not humanity's fault. It's yours. The diplomat hesitated, then lowered their weapon. Earth will not be ignored any longer, but whether it's protected or destroyed will depend on what comes next. As the alien ships began to withdraw, the students watched in silence. They knew the galaxy's eyes would remain fixed on Earth, and the humans would have to face challenges they couldn't yet imagine. Did we do the right thing? Torrent asked as the last ship disappeared into the sky. Lyra looked toward the horizon, where the faint lights of a human city glimmered in the distance. We gave them a chance. The rest is up to them. The students turned and walked away, leaving the smoldering battlefield behind. Somewhere in the distance, the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, casting light on a world forever changed.